the second really super hot topic is sustainability and net zero, where some time ago, sustainability was still a topic of kind of the more leftist oriented people. It's no longer. It's everywhere now and on everybody's radar. And there's a couple of things I'd like to highlight there in sustainability and things that are happening in 2023 that are really important and really key. So the first one is a focus on Scope 3 emissions, right? So we already knew about Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, but now countries are starting to prepare regulations to force companies to look at Scope 3 emissions. And that means everything that is impacted by you as an organization. So along your entire value chain, you will be responsible for controlling the emissions there. So you have to really deep dive into every single actor along the chain, what they're contributing to the emission goals overall, and how to reduce that. So the first step will be to actually make that transparent, and being able to report on that. And obviously the second step and the next steps will be to reduce that and ultimately get to kind of net zero targets, which exist in different ways already around the world, but are coming faster and faster as governments try to accelerate the adoption here and reduce the timeline. So EU is obviously very active, but also in the US and other areas, this is gaining speed. And related to that, the ability to greenwash yourself as a brand is disappearing, right? Where in the past, we saw companies claiming they were sustainable and they put it on their marketing, marketing materials and their websites, and they were really talking about, hey, we're a green company, etc., etc. And we didn't really have much way of proving that and checking that as a consumer or a collaborator or a partner of these organizations. It was really hard to sometimes do that. That is changing, right? So because of the traceability regulations, introduction, for example, of new EU regulation, that is changing, for a company to be able to really do that, because there are going to be checks and balances in place. Regulators are on the topic. Inspectors are going to check on certain things. And also from a consumer perspective, obviously greenwashing is no longer really received well and by the end consumer, and people are starting to see through that. And that also has to, leads me to the third point, which is about product passports. So the EU has put regulation in place that from 2024 up until 2027, certain industries in increasing kind of complexity will need to have a passport for each and every one of their product that they put out in the market. And the passport should really detail what the product is, what is in it, where has it been, what the footprint is, and how it got where it is, how it got where it is today. And tracing, back the entire history of a product, but also its components, is a massive task for companies to undertake, which will help obviously with the no greenwashing points before, and give transparency to consumers on the products, and how and allow them to compare a product A to a product B across brands or across industries or across types of products and so on. And then as a consumer, you will be able to see which journey your product has been on from inception to where it is today. This leads to enormous complexity, right? Because you do need to be able to store and gather and store that data and make it accessible there. So a number of initiatives are now out, in the market, and startups and startup parties are active in this space to create this transparency and these product passports there. And obviously, if you look at individual product passports and where they've been, you can also combine them to look at the entire supply chain, or look at other activities along the entire supply chain, and that is kind of called eco-logistics. So during COVID, supply chains have had a severe hit. There were a lot of disruptions around the world. Products getting stuck, in China, not being able to get them out. Products getting stuck in the Panama Canal, with ships being, not being able to move forward, and that disrupted on the one hand, it disrupted obviously the flow of products and how people looked at it, but it also made the world more aware of, hey, what are we actually doing here with shipping all these products back and forth? So, for example, in the barrel industry, you might be making producing cotton in America. You ship it; it's then being shipped to Asia to a country in Asia for the creation of a fabric, then shipped to another factory for the creation of a product, then it's shipped back to a warehouse in the US, and then transported across the American continent to a final end consumer. And people are more and more aware of this, and a focus on supply chain optimization and reduction of footprints across the world is a key trend. And obviously, then the fifth one is around circular economy and giving products a longer life. A key focal point, including kind of reuse of products, resell. Secondhand marketplaces are rising, but also passing products on from person to person, and then looking into kind of recycling options. And then related also to product passports, for example, being able to track your product all along the way. So there's a lot happening there.